I know you guys have been waiting for me to do a video, a review, a live stream, anything for the final chapter of Tokyo Ghoul Re, and to be honest, I didn't want to do it. I do this quite a bit with series that I've been reading for a very long time. As much as it would give me a fuck ton of views on YouTube, I just like to sit back and take in the final chapter for a series that I've been doing content on for almost 4 years now. I've been reading it for much longer, probably 5, maybe 6 years, I'm not entirely sure, and it definitely has changed my life. Today is going to be a simple discussion. There's not going to be any crazy editing or anything, so enjoy whatever gameplay is in the background, but we're going to sit here and talk about how I felt about the final chapter of Tokyo Ghoul Re. It's going to be an open discussion. I want people to kind of view the end half of this video with some sort of open mind, as I did not have the greatest, reception for the final chapter. And I guess I'll go into detail on what I thought about it and how my opinions came about and everything along those lines, so don't worry. But I do want to thank, obviously, for producing Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re. I want to thank you guys, the fans, the people that enjoy my content, for being with me for, 4 odd years, and I guess experiencing the journey with me. I've done a fuck ton of content for Tokyo Ghoul, chapter reviews, theories, analysis, breakdowns, like everything far and few between. I've done it for Tokyo Ghoul. So I want to thank you guys for that amazing support for so long and helping me build a community around a series that we all loved and enjoyed. Before I get started in talking about how I felt regarding the final chapter, another reason why I didn't want to express my feelings in detail, because I have done a couple of posts talking about it, is because 1, I did not have the best experience with it, and 2, I did not want to warp people's perceptions. I didn't want to re-elaborate things that people might have forgotten or change people's opinions or anything like that. I wanted people to enjoy the chapter for what they wanted it to be. If you loved it, if you hated it, whatever it may be, I didn't want to influence that in any way, shape, or form with my own negative opinions for it. I didn't want to shed some light on things that maybe you forgot, that, you maybe loved the chapter and then you find out about some things and it's like, well, maybe it's not as great. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted people to experience it themselves, and I'm hoping that now that it's kind of settled and people have set into the final chapter, it's been like a day and a bit, that I can finally talk about it pretty openly, and hopefully it doesn't change your perception, it doesn't change your opinion about the chapter and how you feel about it, but more so it just opens you up to the idea on how I feel about it, and hopefully understanding where I'm coming from, because I know this video is most likely going to generate a fuck ton of hate, a fuck ton of misconceptions, like I've been wanting, a certain ending or a certain this or a certain that. I understand that, but this is probably why it's kind of more so a general discussion, and hopefully people understand that. I guess we should start with talking about the final chapter. It's definitely something that a lot of people were expecting, a lot of people weren't expecting it. It was kind of like 50-50. It was either going to be death and destruction, or it was either going to be happily ever after, and we got happily ever after. It's not really a bittersweet ending. It's not coherently sad to that extent. There is nothing entailing in it to be bittersweet. It's generally just a happy ending. Everything that could be done right has gone exactly the way it wanted to. It's almost fairy tale-esque, not the series, but in general, that everything is going perfectly over the past 6 years, I believe the time skip was, and everything's just falling exactly in place. It's a fairy tale-esque ending. A lot of you guys know that I did not want an ending like this for the longest of times, ever since I guess Tokyo Ghoul came about, and when I kind of fully understood the story and grasped the concept of Ishida's writing, I did not want an ending like this. Because this ending is different to my opinion and to my ideas of what I wanted, it by no means makes it a bad ending, alright? I'm not here talking about how bad the ending was because it did not fit my own perspective. I guess I should elaborate on why I wanted Kaneki to die and why it fit Sue Ishida's writing so much, is because a happy ending can be done well. It really can. And I always thought a happy ending could be done extremely well if it was heavily paid attention to, if it heavily had a lot of build up for it and it worked well with the finale of the story. In this case, this happy ending does not work with the finale of the story. The final chapter is segregated on its own. It's not even connected to the final arc whatsoever. There is nothing entailing a happy ending throughout the whole Dragon arc. It is just there. It's just a add-on. It's an attachment. It's a template is what I call it. It is something that I believe Ishida has done because maybe he couldn't do the ending that he pictured, and that is just pure speculation. I have nothing for that. I have nothing backing up that idea whatsoever. The reason why I think this, however, and that he's kind of slapped this this together and separated it with a time skip and kind of just attached the story, because you could realistically stop reading Tokyo Ghoul Re the chapter before, with Kaneki kind of drowning in the dragon structure before he gets pulled out by Ayato, and you could stop it there, and that's the end of the story. You know, Kaneki died, what else is there to tell? Abruptly as it would be, it's kind of fitting for his style, but when you push a happy ending 6 years later and everything's going extremely well, perfectly mind you, and everything has kind of just sorted itself out, there is no ties to it. From this dragon arc, from Tokyo Ghoul Re entirely, there is only small snippets that maybe somehow warp and shape into a big happy final ending, but there was nothing for it in the dragon arc. Not to the extent, at least, to build such a 6-year time skip and everything's perfectly well type of ending. I say this because if Ishida really wanted to write a happy ending, it would have been a lot more coherent. It would have made a lot more sense. It would have not necessarily been a 6-year time skip. It most likely would have segued a lot better into the final chapter. He would have emphasized a lot of different things throughout the ending of the dragon arc and help kind of push a maybe elongated ending. So kind of split the final chapter into 3 chapters potentially, and you have more so mini time skips instead of the 6-year block that you get. Try maybe 1 or 2, and you could write a happy ending like that. You could segue it extremely well with how the dragon arc went, and you know, if there was 2 chapters between where Kaneki was drowning in dragon right at the end there, the 2 chapters and then this final chapter, I would have been a lot more happier with it. It would have built up and emphasized a much more happier and emotional finale. But like I said, this is why I think that Ishida did not plan to do a happy ending to begin with, is because realistically this final chapter can be taken out completely and nothing changes. This chapter feels like an attachment, a template, maybe something that he's had in his back pocket just in case. And it's the most easiest type of template or ending you could write. A lot of authors do it. Bleach done it, Naruto done it, Fairy Tail kind of done it, right? It's a extremely easy and simple way to gain the what I call fickle and fake emotions from your fans, from your readers, and have this extremely, maybe not necessarily out of place, but extremely forced template chapter with, you know, a massive time skip and everyone living happily ever after. It's not even about people living happily ever after. I would not mind Kaneki living or disappearing or anything that equates to him being alive, you know, his child, etc., etc. All of this great stuff happening with ghouls and humans joining the world together, and research is going extremely well. I wouldn't have mind this if there was more to it, if there was a lot more explanation, if it didn't feel like it was just an add-on or attachment to help please fans and to end off his story to some extent. But it's not like that. We didn't get that. We got 1 chapter that was filled with information that felt so forced, that felt so fickle, a ton of information about characters that don't even matter to the story. You have situations that are completely left open, like Dragon, and all of these things happening from Dragon, like Shikarae as well. You have massive developments in the CCG and changing their company and organization to better the future, TSC or TCS or whatever the fuck it was called. You have information dropping about Hide and kind of his, I guess, mini version of a backstory, and how he was approached by the CCG and, you know, his father and everything, which does not mean anything, mind you. My question is, why did Ishida even add stuff like that to begin with in a final chapter? Why are you continuously adding more stuff to help kind of falsely and fickly beefing up your own final chapter to try and cover as many loose ends as possible, as thickly as possible? I know the Hide thing's a big deal, like, oh yeah, he has adopted fathers, that means he's gay or something. Like, for one, first of all, they're adoptive. 2, it does not matter. 3, it does not matter to the story because he implemented it on the final chapter, so it doesn't mean anything for Hide's character because there's nothing there. I'm still kind of confused on why he added it. I guess build a little bit more backbone for Hide, but it's the final chapter. Tying off loose ends, I guess. To me, everything just felt extremely convenient, extremely well placed. When you have a story that is written from start to basically finish, filled with tragedy and mishaps, misdirection, torture, psychological horror, everything that could go wrong will go wrong, to ultimately having a chapter where everything goes perfectly right. Is there a balance? Because the whole struggle of Kaneki, the whole perception of Kaneki throughout Tokyo Ghoul Re and even Tokyo Ghoul was him overcoming his tragedies, him trying so hard to be this bigger and better person, to avoid his tragedy completely, to manipulate and control his own story, his own narrative. It makes it seem so fickle and simplistic when you have a chapter that just has everything going right when Kaneki's not even involved. Everything's just perfectly in place place, and the things that aren't in place are so openly left. Story realistically hasn't even come to a conclusion. Kaneki's story, maybe if you want to call it that, sure, but at the end of the day, what made Tokyo Ghoul incredible was we had all these tragic moments, we had all this torturous stuff, but Kaneki overcome it. Kaneki made himself overcome it and changed his perception and how he viewed the world and ghouls and himself. So when you have a story that literally ends on Kaneki drowning in dragon, to then being a 6-year time skip and everything's perfectly fine, he has children, he has a loving family, etc, etc, yes, you can say he deserved that. Yes, you can say that that's what he was fighting for, and that's obviously what he was building for, but it's a 6-year time skip. It doesn't matter. It's just like, okay, well, 6-year time skip. You could put this 6-year time skip after any point in Kaneki's kind of journey throughout Tokyo Ghoul Re, you know, a big fight, you know, the Arima versus Kaneki V2, when he turns into One-Eyed King, boom, you could slap this ending in there. When Kaneki gets ultimately cut into pieces by Suzuya and Hanbi, boom, you could slap this chapter in there. When Kaneki gets pulled out of Dragon, boom, you could slap this chapter in there. Do you see how fickle it is? Do you see how much of a template this final chapter is? That is how I view it, and that's what makes me extremely disappointed, because I know if Ishida wanted to write a happy ending, there would have been a lot more backstory, a lot more context to a 6-year time skip. So what went wrong? What happened? And I don't know. We may never know. You know, was it an external thing? Was it his publishers? Was it just Ishida not caring anymore? It could be a multitude of different things. As happy as this ending was, as great as it was to see Kaneki happy and living, you know, doing all these great things, the emotion with Suzuya and Shinohara, just all of these things that were, you know, accumulated in this chapter, Ishida wanted to make people happy and smile and be like grateful for the journey. Like seeing Kaneki go through so much to ultimately having this happy ending is well deserved for him. He deserved this happy ending. But this chapter and how it was structured and how it was told and how it basically unfolded and unraveled makes his journey seem so null and void. Like he didn't just struggle for so long to have everything fall perfectly in place for him. It's not about giving him a break. It's showcasing the efforts that he has built, the showcasing the agony and struggle that he has gone through to get to this final chapter. It would have taken maybe 2 to 5 chapters between this final chapter and last week's chapter, right? Just put in 2 to 5 chapters right there to help just flesh everything out a little bit more. You know, dump information throughout these 2 to 5 odd chapters, you know, maybe little bits of time skips here and there, clarify what Kaneki done after Dragon, how he approached the situation, how he kind of built this empire on his own and changed the world. The biggest thing about Kaneki joining the human world and the ghoul world together has been completely skipped. No one has mentioned it. No one's talked about it. That's the funny thing to me. This final chapter is so bright and bubbly and emotional. Like, yes, it's great. You know, you love it. It's all good. What happened? What happened to joining the human world and the ghoul world together? We didn't get to see that. We don't get to see the results. We don't get to see how Kaneki pushed that agenda. It doesn't even have to be literal. It doesn't even have to be, you know, something that you see specifically throughout 1 to 5 chapters. It could have been a small portion of snippets of time skips in these said chapters, showcasing Kaneki's kind of mindset on how he wanted to approach things after Dragon. That would have been so much more better to build up such a happy ending. Just context and backstory, and it really, really would have helped segue such a tragic story that Kaneki has pushed so far and so hard for to better himself, to better the world. You know, it would have fit so much better to have all of this narrative boiled down to a close death encounter, almost everything slipping away from Kaneki to being saved, and then his determination and process after it. Not just a 6-year time skip. Everything happened in that time. You can put it together yourself. Everything fell perfectly into place, and that's that. End of story. For me, death would have been a more better way to go if Ishida did not know what to do with his story, or if Ishida wanted to end his story abruptly, or if he didn't care about Tokyo Ghoul anymore, or if, you know, the magazine company was, you know, pushing down on him, you know, end it, finish it, drop it here. I don't know, but I feel like death and destruction, then the time skip would have been handled a lot better. You want to do a 6-year time skip? Imagine this 6-year time skip, this final chapter without Kaneki. Imagine the final panel you get in the story is Kaneki's child and Toka visiting his grave. You know how fucking sad that would have been? You know how emotional and incredible, like the conclusion of a story, of a journey, of a tragedy? What's great about that as well is Kaneki's legacy lives on with with that death. You could still have everything fall perfectly into place with Dragon being destroyed and helping, evolve the human race and scientific and medical advancement, ghouls and humans working together in harmony. You could have had this exact same entire chapter without Kaneki in it. That would have showcased all of his hard work paid off. All of the tragedy and destruction and death, everything, the darkness that he went through, the darkness that he pushed through, paid off. It could have been incredible to end a series with Hide, Toka, and his child going to see his grave and showcasing us as viewers that Kaneki's hard work finally paid off and he can rest in peace. It's not as tragic as a tragedy ending could potentially be, but it is a fucking bittersweet, emotional as fuck ending. It's tragic for Kaneki's character. It's sad, it's emotional, it's brutal to read, and the biggest thing is that it concludes the story. It brings everything to a conclusion. Right now we have an ending that is not concluded in my opinion whatsoever. Everyone's still alive, everyone's still doing things, Dragon's still, being a nuisance, ghouls are getting incredibly powerful, Kaneki's still kicking around with his children, Toga's got another child on the way. It hasn't even ended. I could do another 6-year time skip and focus on Kaneki's children. Focus on Kaneki being an old man, maybe. Does he even age anymore? What's the goal with that? We didn't find out about Rize. We didn't find out how it's affected Kaneki. We didn't find out a lot of different things. Like, overall, there is still so much mystery to the story. So many characters left unanswered, and so many characters and, motives and situations that were so built upon ultimately fizzled out and faded away. V Organization? Who were they? Not even a thing anymore. Kaiko? Who was that? I don't know. Relevant for 3 chapters. Has a crazy ability supposedly to control ghouls. We didn't find out about that. No, it's gone. The Dragon arc was extremely rushed. Extremely rushed. For me, this final chapter just feels like a template. It feels like every other series and every other author not knowing completely how to end their story, potentially in an abrupt way. If you have enjoyed the final chapter, that's perfectly fine. I'm glad that you guys have enjoyed it. I'm glad you got to see Kaneki have a happy ending with his family, with his child, with everything. I'm glad you guys got that. I really am. In my head, I still wish that this entire chapter just took Kaneki out of it, did not have him in it. And the final panel you see is Kaneki's grave with his child and Toka visiting it with Hide. Emotional, sad, tragic, but worthwhile, conclusive. The struggle has been completed. His journey has been completed. Everything that he fought so ridiculously hard for has not fallen in vain. He has not died in vain. And I feel like an ending like that, because that kind of fits my own perspective of what I really would have loved to seen, just would have been perfect for that situation. But hey, that's just me. That's all I've got. If you guys have watched this far, I want to thank you guys for all the amazing support over the years. It's going to be very interesting to see where I go now without Tokyo Ghoul. I'm not too sure how many PG videos I have left. I think I'm going to talk about the anime soon, or the first half of it, and then that's it. This is one of the final videos of TG I'll probably be doing. I am very excited to see if Soe Ishida pursues another story after, a well-deserved break. I would love to see him continue to write and pursue a completely different narrative, a completely different idea, and just to see what he could bring to the table. So once again, thank you Ishida for producing Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re. I want to thank you guys, the fans, the TG lovers, for joining me on this journey and supporting my channel and the content that I made surrounding TG, because it has been a blast. It has been extremely fun, and I guess we'll move on to bigger and better things. So with that being said, I'm actually going to end the video off here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.